You may see him here. He flies one of the Mustangs out there, but it's his company, Scotts, that have supported us over the years. Another organization here is Fagen Fighters WWII Museum, Granite Falls, Minnesota. They've got some beautiful airplanes here also. In fact, the real shiny P-51 out there, if you want to take a look at it, is theirs. But they've been sponsoring us again for quite some time. And that building right behind us is compliments of Ron and Diane Fagen, so I thank them also. Lastly, the production company, if you will, Air-to-Air TV, has been doing a spectacular job here for many, many years. And Scott and Kyle Guyette have been running that organization. Last year, she's gone right now. I think we streamed this event to over 17 million people all over the world. So feel fortunate that you're part of that community that have watched these great shows. And now I'll get into a little bit of what we're about to start here. We've got this P-40K here, as I said. We've got 4 individuals that are going to be coming up, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. The individuals is the owner of the aircraft itself. His son is out here also, who is a pilot and flew it. And one other pilot and restorer who's going to be here. And then we have the daughter. If you take a look on the canopy rail up there, you'll see a pilot. It says Lieutenant C.W. List. That's Curtis List. And his daughter is here today. And we'll be able to talk to her a little bit. So with that, I'm going to ask the crew to come on out, and we'll get the show started. Okay, I'm going to ask them to hold on for just a second. And we do have, and if you've been to this before, we have a great intro video. And so we're going to start that first before we bring them out. So with that, I'll just say, hey, please direct your attention to the big screen over here and take a look. And it's going to give you a little bit of an introduction into what we're going to talk about today.
In October of 1941, as the world stood on the brink of total war, an order was placed for 600 Curtiss P-40K Warhawks. They were intended for China under the Lend-Lease program, but history would chart a different course. One of those aircraft was serial number 42-9733. Accepted by the Army Air Forces on August 31st, 1942, at a cost of $44,359, 42-9733 began its journey into a theater few would ever call home. After modification in Memphis, Tennessee, the aircraft was assigned to the Bronze Theater of Operations, Alaska. From Great Falls, Montana, along the Northwest Ferry route, through thousands of miles of wilderness, 42-9733 arrived at Elmendorf Army Airfield in January 1943. It joined more than 7,000 aircraft that would pass through Alaska during the war. But the Aleutians were unlike any other battlefield. The headquarters of the 11th Air Force moved west to Adak, bringing American air power within striking distance of Kiska, the main Japanese stronghold in the Aleutians. Here, P-40s like 42-9733 were not glamorous dogfighters. Their mission was flak suppression. They flew ahead of the bombers, diving into heavily fortified islands, drawing fire, silencing guns, and absorbing punishment so others might survive. It was deadly work. One hit to the Warhawk's liquid-cooled engine and the pilot would be forced into the freezing waters of the North Pacific, where survival was measured in minutes. The weather was relentless. Low ceilings, half-mile visibility, winds exceeding 100 knots. The Aleutians averaged only 5 sunny days a year. And as one observer put it, nothing's flying around here but a few Quonset huts. On May 11th, 1943, American forces invaded Attu. After 17 brutal days, 549 Americans were dead. It was the costliest ground battle, proportionate to force size, in the Pacific. And overhead, aircraft like 42-9733 were part of the relentless air campaign that made victory possible. Yet the campaign received little recognition. Even some wanted it forgotten. And for many years, it was. By June 1943, airfields on Attu and Shimya placed Japan within reach. Sporadic strikes were launched. But more importantly, the presence of American forces in the Aleutians forced Japan to divert as many as 500 aircraft and over 40,000 troops to defend against a northern invasion that never came. Those forces could not fight in the South or Central Pacific. The quiet war in the North saved lives elsewhere. In February of 1944, Second Lieutenant Curtis List arrived in Alaska. Within weeks, he and the 18th Fighter Squadron were stationed on Attu, the westernmost edge of America. His diary counted down the days of his tour, numbered in reverse. The isolation was crushing, the weather merciless, each day the same as the last. Yet the mission endured. On July 16, 1944, while testing a newly installed Allison engine at Casco Field on Attu, 42-9733 veered off the runway into a ditch. Damage was extensive. Wings, engine, propeller. But the aircraft was repaired and returned to service in September. Then on March 3, 1945, during a ferry flight in heavy snow squalls, another accident occurred while landing. Visibility was minimal. Crosswinds gusted to 35 knots. In the confusion, 42-9733 collided with another Warhawk, serial number 42-9735. Just 3 serial numbers apart, they had begun their service together. And now, nearly 2 years later, their stories collided once more. The propeller of 9733 tore into its sister aircraft, and with that, its military career came to an end. Ironically, the accident may have saved it. By 1945, older fighters were being scrapped, but 42-9733 never reached the scrapyard. Written off by the Army Air Forces, it simply ceased to exist on paper. And there it sat, through wind, through snow, through decades of silence, waiting for another life. Warhawk 42-9733 is more than aluminum and rivets. It represents a forgotten campaign, a brutal environment, and the quiet sacrifice of those who served where few were watching. In the storm-swept Aleutians, history was written in fog and flak, and this aircraft was there.
Yeah, follow me. Great video. What do you think? I gave you a little bit of history on this aircraft, this specific aircraft right here. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Quick introductions. At the end, we've got Vicki List McIntosh. That is the daughter of, you'll see on the side there, pilot, Second Lieutenant List, Curtis List. So that's his daughter right there. So thank you for being here, Vicki. We really appreciate it. I think this morning was the first time you had a chance to see the airplane too, right?
Amazing, yes.
Okay, we'll stop there for right now. The next guy, yeah, this is the guy we got to really thank because he is the owner of this aircraft. Butch Schroeder. I won't get into his history. I found it fascinating, the number of airplanes that he has owned, and we'll let him tell that story himself a little bit later. Craig Davidson's next, pilot. He's the guy who flew it in here, so thank you very much. It was supposed to be here last year, from what I understand, and didn't quite make it, so we're very happy that it is here this year. And then we've got Jay. That's the son of that other guy over there, and you admit to that, though, don't you? Or don't you admit to that? I'm not sure. Yeah, but that's Jay Schroeder, and he's also one of the pilots of this aircraft, and also heavily involved in the rebuilding of this aircraft, also. So. We're going to run out of time. I can tell you that right now. But I want to start with Butch and just say, okay, Butch, why is it here? You know, why do we have this P-40? And there's other P-40s around. We had a P-40 here last year. But why did you get this P-40? So, Butch.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
My dad was a fighter pilot in World War II. And I've had the opportunity to either own or fly every airplane that he flew when he was in the service, with the exception of the P-40. And that was my motive to buy this airplane. It was to be the last one. And but old age caught up with me, so I won't have the opportunity to fly it. But you know, it's been a great story.
Yeah, and that story starts, though, with you saying, okay, I want to find a P-40, one like my dad flew, and you went out there looking. You went shopping, okay? And then you found this airplane.
You know, Craig and I went to New Jersey to look at this airplane, and we went and looked at it. Everything seemed to be okay. So we made a deal. If the airplane could be flown to our home airport, you know, the deal would be done. And at that time, we had no idea of the history of this airplane. So once we got the airplane, I got in touch with the Air Force Museum. I gave them the military number, and they gave me where this airplane spent its career, which was in the Aleutian Islands. And I mean, it's a long story, but we started getting all the information. We found where her dad had a landing accident up in the Aleutian Islands. And so we went to the VA to try to find this man, but he had already passed away. But they gave me his obituary, and the obituary was her name and her phone number. So one night, I called her up, told her who I was, and I says, please don't hang up on me. I own your dad's airplane. And she sent me this great big cardboard box full of pictures from when he was in the Aleutian Islands. So we started sorting through all this, and this guy here decided to make his own mission to do the way the airplane looks now.
You got a B-29 flyby for you. How's that, huh?
Everybody's going to look anyway.
Okay, so that's how it came about, and you made a phone call, and you got a box of stuff, and I'll just start with names. Okay, we look up on the canopy, and it says, okay, pilot, Lieutenant Curtis W. List, okay, and then the crew chief down below it. But up front, you've got Josephine on this side, and on the other side, you can't see the other side. You might have seen it maybe in the video, but it's maybe a little politically incorrect. But it's a picture of a dog urinating on the Japanese. Oh, look. But Vicki, I'll just ask, what do those names mean to you? Obviously, that's your dad up there on the canopy, but how about Josephine? How about Sharon? What does that mean?
Josephine was my mother, and her name was Josephine Upper List, and she detested Josephine, hated it. No one was to call her Josephine. It had to be Joe, except Curtis. And Curtis called her Josephine. So that was his wife.
Okay, so Josephine was, and how about Sharon on the other side?
Sharon was his oldest sister's first baby, the first baby within his two sisters and two sisters and a brother, and Sharon was the first baby. So she was born when he was in the Aleutian Islands. And I think he in his journal talks about, how happy he is for her. And so he put Sharon on the other side of the plane, and Goofy was supposed to be funny. But a pilot can make funny a lot of different ways.
How about your dad? Talk a little bit about your dad. Did he talk much about, his experience in the Aleutians and World War II?
He really didn't talk about it a lot. He never did. He told me where he was and my little brother, and but he didn't really talk a lot about it. But the best story that he did tell us that I love is that he liked pilots. He played poker, did craps, and he won a diamond doing craps. And the diamond became my mother's wedding ring. They were married already, but she had a little band like everybody did when they first got married. But she had a honker diamond out of the war.
Wow. Okay, so that takes care of the naming of the aircraft. And everybody, if you don't realize, this is not one of the glamour fighters of World War II. A lot of guys, started out in a T-6, ended up flying a P-40, and then they went to, a P-51 Mustang or a Corsair or one of the glamour. This was a workhorse. This is one of the airplanes that they built a lot of them, but then to put it up there in Alaska the way they did and to have it function up there is just absolutely amazing. And I gotta say, from an authenticity standpoint, and Craig can jump in here a little bit, you're going to look at the paint job here, and these airplanes, a lot of these airplanes are judged here, and they compete for the awards here, and people may look at this thing and go, well, wait a second, that wing is a little bit different, and this isn't, well, tell us about that, Craig. Tell us about the authenticity, just in terms of the paint job of this airplane.
Well, it all started about 82 years ago last week when Curtis had his accident in the Aleutians. And from that information, like I said, we had the accident report, and it said to repair the airplane, they had to get a new wing, ailerons, pitot tube, and a propeller and whatnot. And it really wasn't, it was nice they had the Photoshop stuff here. It really wasn't that badly damaged, but they were able to, in a span of about 6 weeks, take a wing from another P-40 and take the damaged one off and put the replacement wing on that. And they did this all outdoors. Mm-hmm. And if anybody's done any outdoor work in winter, because that's what summer's like up there, it's cold, damp, and windy. It's just amazing that they were able to get that done in a short period of time. But that's why the airplane has a different painted wing, because it came from a different airplane. So that really sent me on another path. I had a friend of mine, David Burrows, asked the question, what does this airplane mean to you? What does it represent? And to me, it represents every man's airplane, every man or woman that served in the United States Armed Services that sacrificed and worked hard and do good things, but we don't know anything about. I mean, our mantra's been it's an unknown pilot and second-rate fighter in a forgotten theater. So here you have this unbelievable amount of work, and I've done outdoor maintenance in my lifetime. I was a Twin Beach night freight pilot, and I did outdoor maintenance in the winter of 1978-79. I don't remember it ever being fun. So these guys did incredible things, and I wanted to kind of highlight that. So David Burrows took that idea and kind of ran with it, and he said, you know, if we just kind of had a list of unknown veterans, and then he sees the single tree in the forest. He goes, if we just had the Curtis list. So what he came up with is, like, if you know of someone who fits that description, that you can nominate that person with one of these. And this is goes to an ammo box, and this is a nomination of who the person was, their hometown, theater of operation, their position, their rank, who nominated them, and that'll be in the EAA Museum at the end of each year. So we're hoping that when people see this airplane, it keys to me. It's like going, the airplane is really cool and it's different, but it really represents all the people that nobody knows anything about. So we really hope that takes off, but that depends on everyone out in the audience, whether they're going to participate or not, or if they want to run with it. But this thing has taken so many turns in the evolution of what it is. It's just really been an interesting journey. So it started out to just do something very historical and turned into something of a completely different mission that's far more noble than what I've ever thought of.
Quick question for Vicki. Did Curtis fly after the war? Did he continue on?
He did. He joined the Texas Air National Guard. He got to the position of colonel, and his last plane was Deuce F-102.
Wow.
So that was
Okay.
his career.
Okay.
Being a pilot was his career.
That's a pretty good career, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And Bush, I got to ask you, okay, where did you buy this airplane? Where did it come from? What was the?
It was in New Jersey.
Okay.
I just remember it was by Fort Dix.
Disconnect.
That wasn't me.
Me?
Are they talking to you?
His wife is
That wasn't you, Jay. Did you say that? No? Okay. All right. Okay, so it was in New Jersey, and you went down, you looked at it, and,
Yes.
and then it flew in.
I'm sorry. We inspected the airplane, and everything seemed to be okay. And we made a deal, if they would fly the airplane to our airport, the deal would be done. And we got the airplane, and it was sitting there once it got to our house. And I thought, we got to change the paint scheme. I said, Craig, let's just paint it green. And then all this other history started coming up, you know, it just changed the way things were done. You know, if you look at the airplane, you'll notice that the paints don't match up, because when this airplane was built, you know, this part might have been painted here, that part painted there, and the airplane's put together. I mean, when these things were built in World War II, they were done for a purpose. You know, they didn't look pristine. And so when we did this airplane, we tried to make it look the way it would have been in World War II, not a prestigious airplane.
In that regard, I guess the airplane had been somewhat modified in terms of weight and balance and stuff like that. If you do get a chance to take a look at this airplane up close, you're going to see everything is authentic. Craig opened a panel back there and says, hey, here are the original radios. And I look in the cockpit, here's the gun sight. But then it was interesting because with the radios, he sat there and said, yeah, there were no radios in it, I guess, when it first arrived, and Jay, you can tell us the story about the lead weights. There were just lead weights back there for weight and balance, and I guess you had the opportunity to remove all the lead weights.
I don't know how many lead weights there were. I think they were 90 pounds each. And me being the younger one in the bunch, I had to do all the heavy lifting. And inside the baggage compartment, we nicknamed it, pardon my French, the hellhole. Because I'm sitting in there, and Craig and I took turns to try to lift these things out. Once we got all the plates out of there, we got the oxygen tank in place, and I think he found all the radios on eBay and got in touch with a ham radio. He gave him a list of all the radios that we need. We got them, and now they are fitted in there after lots of trials, tribulations, and some not so nice words were said trying to get them to fit.
Yeah, but the interesting thing there is that, okay, they had all the lead in there or whatever for a reason, for weight and balance. You know, it's critical, you know, in terms of CG, et cetera. But then Craig said he put the radios in there and he was scratching his head kind of going, is this really going to work now, is it? And as it turned out, weight and balance with those original radios worked out fine.
Worked out perfectly, because there's a fair amount that it's not like we're so used to electronics being light, and there's a fair amount of weight, so it all worked out perfectly.
Well, and it goes beyond that in terms of, okay, he rigged the airplane then, and he did the weight and balance on it, but then he also flew it. And he said he flew it, I don't know, it was the first time or whatever, but he says it just flies like it's on rails. I mean, perfectly balanced, and, you know, he went into, go ahead, you can tell the story.
Well, I'm pretty nervous flying the thing because it's quite expensive, and if I make a mistake, it's going to be all over the world. So we're over the airfield, and I decided, well, let's go ahead and do some steep turns. And I thought, I've never done one where, you know, the altitude just sits there perfectly. There's always a little bit of variance. And this thing just like on rails. I'm tapping the altimeter. I'm like going, is this thing working? And I'm like, well, let's go back the other way. And it's the exact same way. And when Jay went up next, and he goes, dang, this thing is unbelievable stable. It stays where you want it to stay. So it must have been a pretty good gun platform that, you know, once you're pointing it where you want to get it trimmed up, I think it'd probably be a nice, stable gun platform.
Well, and you say gun platform, and Butch and I were talking about this, and just literally just a couple of weeks ago, a friend of ours, Ray Fowler, was flying a P-40. I'm not sure whose it was, but they've actually got an operable gun on board, and they were strafing some, I guess it was plywood tanks or whatever out in the desert somewhere. So they've actually put real guns on one of these somewhere. I'm not sure where it is. But in that regard, let's talk, and I'll ask Craig, just give people, you know, you may not be familiar with the P-40. So talk just a little bit about, hey, engine, horsepower, you know, armament, what's it got motor-wise? It's got an Allison?
It has an Allison 1710. This is the latest variant, Dash 111, so it has all the upgrades that Allison made throughout the history of the engine. So it's a very, very smooth running engine. It's reliable. It's about 1,710 cubic inches. And
How much horsepower?
That's about 1,500. It really kind of depends where they talk, takeoff horsepower, water emergency power, things like that. So you can kind of come up with a variety of numbers. But that's why this has got a fatter tail. That's what they call a K model, kind of a fat tail. It has a dorsal fin that they added to try to give it more longitudinal stability, because this Allison kept on making more and more horsepower. It got to the point that the later variants, the vertical stabilizer where the rudder is, it's moved back about 18 inches, and that's to give it more authority. So that occurred, the mark, right after this one, because that Allison just kept on growing on horsepower.
Any problems? I mean, with a lot of horsepower like that?
No, it's we're not obviously using what they used in the war. You're allowed to go up to 52 inches as mercury. We're only using about 40. So it's not really breathing hard at all. It's my steerman was an excellent trainer for this airplane. You can't see anything from the back seat of a steerman anyway, so every landing was very similar. And we went up and we stalled it and did the 1.3 times your dirty stall speed and set that up on approach, and the thing pretty much just lands itself. It's just a real nice airplane, and I can see why. You said it was Curtis's favorite airplane.
It was, absolutely.
Yeah, and I could see why.
Landing speed, what are you flying?
We're doing about, what 13, is that what we say? Yeah. And it does what you tell it to do.
Okay, how about armament? What was typical armament?
It had 6 50 caliber machine guns. I don't know offhand how many rounds it had in for each gun, but that's a lot of punch. And as the video mentioned, its mission was flak suppression. So the early Wild Weasel, what they used in Vietnam, and its mission was to go in before the bombers and shoot at the anti-aircraft artillery, which would not be a fun mission. So anyway, that's what this airplane done, because by the time this airplane got here, the Japanese were not able to resupply the airplanes they had lost. So there were no airplanes really for this airplane to shoot down. The Japanese, they were all destroyed.
How about hard points underneath? What were, you put fuel tanks. In fact, you've got fuel tanks. You just didn't put them on.
Yeah, there's a center point here that we can put a 75-gallon fuel tank. And there's also, they're not on this airplane, but some outboard smaller hard points for smaller bombs and whatnot. But,
okay, so it was a bomber also. I mean,
yeah.
It could do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so that talks a little bit, and it's a water-cooled motor, by the way, and operating in those temperatures up there, I would think that would make it a little bit difficult.
I think the only bad thing about this Allison is on the ground it heats up really quick, but up in the Alaska you wouldn't have that problem. I mean, you see these big fins down here, they're cow flaps. And every picture I've seen of the airplane in the Aleutians, they're closed completely. So once you get up in the air, it's no problem. But boy, on the ground, this thing gets hot in a hurry, particularly if it's above 65 degrees outside air temperature. You better be where you want to be, because she's not going to be running for long.
What's the future of this airplane? How many hours are on it right now?
The motor on it now has 250 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the future will be up to him.
So what are you going to do with it, Butch? Are you just going to put it in a hangar, or are you going to fly it around? Not you, but let these guys.
I'll let these two guys fly the airplane.
Okay, good. So you might see it at some air shows and stuff like that.
I'm sorry?
Some air shows. You might get it out to some air shows here and there.
Yes.
Okay, good. How about in the rebuild process, finding parts for this thing? Was it difficult, or are they out there? Are they available?
It was really a challenge to find parts for this airplane, because there's so many not many around. I met a guy in New Zealand. I think after the war, he went around and collected wrecked airplanes. And if I give him a part number, he'd look it up and see if he had it. And he was extremely helpful in finding a lot of the parts that were missing. With the P-51, there's a lot of manufacturers that make parts for that airplane, but with the P-40, it's not that way.
And it was an 8-year process, is that right, Craig, in terms of the rebuild?
Yeah, 8.5 years, and boy, it was a long road, and it was just us guys for the most part. That's it.
And it's not like you're a professional rebuilding group.
No, I'm an A&P, but I reluctant A&P.
What was the toughest part of the rebuild? Go ahead.
Everything. There's no such thing as an easy restoration in my book, but like I said, that's probably more to my limited talents.
Had you had experience in the past? Had you rebuilt other warbirds?
No, it's always been automobiles, so you know, I've had some experience doing restorations, but this was my first airplane, and I was just going to paint the airplane because when we got it, I said, you know, Butch, looks like a good airplane, but I just did not like the paint job. You know, I called it the Tony Tiger paint job, and I'm sure a lot of people say all P-40s should have tiger shark mouths, and the rest that don't have them are mistakes, but we decided to do it this way anyway.
Yeah, well, again, this is authentic. This is the way it was. You know,
Yeah. How
many of these did they build? Do you have any idea?
I think it's 14,800, something like that.
Any idea how many are left flying today?
Gosh, we just looked at that last night. John
35 or 40 are flying currently.
Okay. Okay. And how'd you get your experience, Jay, flying this thing?
About a year ago, we started the process to get checked out. At that time, we had his T6, so we took turns getting proficient in the T6, and then Doug Rosendahl, I'm sure some of you are familiar with that name.
Everybody knows Rosie, yep.
Yeah. So he came up, he did the test flight on the P-40, and then once he did the test flight, Craig and I went up with him in the back seat, flew the airplane, did some landings. We were able to get a letter of authorization signed from Mark Henley. That gave us 60 days to go up, practice in the airplane. We had a list of maneuvers, a gouge of everything that we had to do for the check ride. Once we felt comfortable, Mark flew up to Danville, and he says, okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to stay over the runway so I can watch you perform all these maneuvers. We had to do steep turns, stalls, no flap landing, go around, then a normal landing. And then once we came back and he was happy with it, he gave us our P-40 endorsement for this thing.
Okay, and do you have experience? Are you P-51 qualified and T6 and yep?
Yes, he previously owned a P-51 called Little Margaret. Both Craig and I had experience flying it. We both went to Stallion 51 in Kissimmee, Florida. Prior to that, all my time was small airplanes. I went to the University of Illinois, got all my ratings, and then I started flying his T6, and then once he was patient enough for me to fly his Mustang, then I made the decision to go down to Stallion, and I started flying that.
Okay, I got to ask your dad, how'd you get flying these things? I mean, this is the last one that you haven't flown, but you flew everything else.
Yes. I mean, I learned to fly in a Cessna 150, and that was fine, but trying to fly this stuff, it was a challenge. I was fortunate that I had a friend of mine that was a warrant officer in the Army, bird dogs, beavers, and all that stuff. He would fly the stuff home and we'd go play. I put on my military uniform so we looked official. And that's how it all started. I mean, it took a while to get accustomed, to what you're doing.
And
wow.
He is correct. It takes a while to get used to it. And when I went down to Stallion, came home, I was pretty excited to fly his Mustang, and I don't think he was ready yet. I kept pacing around the airport and finally says, if you want to go fly it, fly it. But if something happens, I'm going to do two things. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure you're okay, and then I'm going to kill you if you wreck my airplane.
Okay. And Vicki, I got to ask, did your dad, was he always wanting to be a pilot, or did he just sign up in World War II and say, yeah, I'm here to serve? Do you have any idea how that happened?
I think it was the latter. I think that he wanted to serve.
Okay.
And he was interested in it, and he did really well at the training before the written and tests and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how he got enamored with
And did he fit the typical fighter pilot image?
Well, Well, what is that?
Well,
Yeah, definitely so.
He
And
did.
he had some interesting things that happened that we were talking about this morning. Butch had the clipping that I actually have at home too. It was in the 60s, and he was doing flights to check out UFOs. And he was sent to do that, and several times. And the clipping, it was in the clipping one time, and he told us when he came home, he said, "That was weird stuff. I don't care. Whatever that was weird stuff."
Yep. All right, I'm going to ask Craig to join me, and we're going to do a little walk around the airplane and talk about, hey, just things that might stand out. And then we're going to open it up to questions from the crowd, and we'll call it quits after that. And I will say, well, I'll talk about that later. Okay, so let's just walk around the airplane. Big prop, big motor, and as we said, liquid cooled. So there's the radiator right there.
Yeah, there's two coolant radios on either side with the oil radiator right here. And the Allison engine uses a lot more of the coolant comes from the oil cooler, so that's very important. It's a Curtis Electric prop, same company that
Sound of freedom.
ain't that cool. It's the same company that built the airplane. The electric prop, that's kind of one of those issues that we've had to try to get that worked on and maintained. They're pretty rare these days. They're very expensive, and that's why we were unable to make last year's Warbirds in Review, is that we had an issue with the vibration in the prop. So it kind of came about the idea of we were out of ideas, money, and time, so we just didn't want to do it while it was wrong. We had to get the thing right before we're going to get up here. Mm-hmm. The engine's been very, very reliable. It starts like a car. I mean, it's just fantastic.
You said it tends to get warm, though, if you leave it on the ground for a while, idling, et cetera.
It doesn't take very long. And it's just like any liquid-cooled engine. You have to be very cognizant of the temperature at all times. So that's kind of one of the reasons I think in the Aleutians that this would be an ideal airplane. I don't think you have any issues at all with it overheating. Mm-hmm. And I think it was probably very nice for Curtis to have.
And the engine is a V12.
It's a V12.
6 on one side, 6 on the other. And,
yep. Here are the machine guns. That's this red tape is what they do to keep the grit out of the barrels and whatnot. And the environment up at the Aleutians was volcanic islands, so and just a very harsh environment. Most of the pictures that we see, all the leading edges, anything within the circle of the prop arc would be sandblasted, and the back of the face of the props would have no paint on them whatsoever. And we were almost entertaining that idea for a bit. You know, do we go ahead and try to replicate that? But I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a tough one to do.
I couldn't do it. So the camouflage, we were, from the expert that we talked to, that Butch mentioned from New Zealand, Charles Darby said, well, all these airplanes were actually just olive, drab, and gray. So that was kind of my mindset. And when you kind of get in your mind that, oh, that's what they looked like. So we had some pictures of it would look after it was recovered. And it was clear that the fuselage had different colors on it. And I thought, well, they maybe had done that in theater. I just couldn't really prove anything. But then if you look in the manuals, here's a good picture right here. You can see that they have specific places where that camouflage is supposed to go. And it's a kind of a definite edge, but it's not a tape line. It's feathered. And what they do is they hold up a big rubber mat and then they blow it. So that's why it has that effect, and it has that look on each one. There's a picture earlier, it had a whole lineup of them delivered at Land Field, and they're all the same, and that's why. Now
How about that scratched panel up by the canopy up there?
that's on purpose. When we had the accident report, we could see from the post-accident picture, it was just a black and white grainy photo, you could see the white block, but I couldn't determine what was actually in that block. Now, I knew Curtis was flying the airplane, but I couldn't really prove that his name belonged there. So during the nasty process of stripping the paint off this, Jake can relate, you know, you're watching paint bubble up. It's pretty boring, tedious, nasty work. So I'm looking at it, and I see this little white dot in that crash photo. And then we have an enlarged picture that shows that exact thing, that same picture, and that white dot was the paint that had chipped off. So it wasn't, I couldn't convict a guy of murder with that circumstantial evidence, but I decided it's close enough for me, so when I painted it, I put axle grease on there, and thinking, well, and yes, I did look at the actual picture and try to replicate it. I painted it, and then it didn't chip off. So it took about 1.5 years, 2 years before it finally decided
to
chip off. And, you know, yeah, I know I'm weird. That's okay. Over here.
I applaud you. That's called attention to detail there.
This is the hell hole. And this is where all the radios are. You have the electric fuel pump, hydraulic pump here, the battery, and then all these radios. There's 2 here, 3 here, an inverter. There's just a lot of weight in here. And then there's a big monster back here as well. And he found it on eBay because, and these things came, we hadn't done anything to them. These radios are still around because they were used post-war in taxi cabs. So they had a purpose after the war. So I'm old enough to remember seeing a plumber's truck radio dispatched. You know, it was a big thing. So that's what they used, these radios. So I built all the wiring and whatnot. And the issue that was really not fun is to connect them up front. There's a hole about yay big, maybe 1 inch in diameter, that all those wires go through. Well, the cannon plugs don't fit. So basically I had to get in there and solder all those cannon plugs in the hell hole. It was not fun, but.
How much fuel does it hold?
Well, this one here is, we have a fuselage tank that looks like a gigantic 55-gallon drum on its side, and it holds 68 here, 50.5 in they call it aft wing, and 35 gallons in the front. I flew up here, and I only burned 36.5 gallons an hour. We were doing over 200 miles an hour. The thing is just cruising along, happy as all get out.
What kind of range on a normal P-40K would they?
How far? Well, obviously it depends on wind aloft and that sort of thing, and altitude. We don't have the ADS-Bs, so we're limited to below 10,000 feet. So all those factors as far as are going to determine the range. But I mean, my gosh, with that kind of fuel burns, you probably have almost 1 hour and 45 minutes on this tank, and then you have probably 1 hour and 15 on that, and that front one would be your reserve. So you've got pretty long legs at 200 miles an hour indicated. They had like these decals are just like what they put on your model airplanes, your water transfer. So you put them on, and then what they did to keep them from getting blown off is they put lacquer over them to kind of glue them down. And then with time, they age. So I didn't have time to age, so I just used shellac to kind of give that yellow look to it. On the back here, they have theater markings, which basically kind of help identify friend or foe. And these are the markings here for the squadron. There's an interesting flare gun up here that looks like a gigantic revolver, and the shells are, what, 1.25 inches. I mean, they're massive. And they have this Rube Goldberg cable that comes, you pull it, looks right underneath your right leg, and you pull up on that, and it operates a cable, shoots a flare through the hole in the fuselage, and then they slap a a patch on the top to keep water from getting in there. So I elected to just use silver dope because I figured, well, they're not going to have the same color paint to match. More geeky details. You can't see it. We have pictures, but they had, on this side, it has 3.3 and 297, but this way is 297.33, if that makes any sense. It's not balanced. I mean, I would like symmetry in my world.
We're building a lot of these, and speed was important. They wanted to get them off the line.
You're absolutely right. So I couldn't figure out why they did that, but then I did. It's like, because of what you said, you had a stencil for 297.33. They just slapped 297 on the rudder and 3.3s over here, because at the time this thing was built, August of 42, we were not necessarily winning the war. They needed the airplane. And like I said, this airplane, I think why it was camouflaged as it is, kind of the salmon and spinach, it was meant to go to China, but they had a need, so off to Aleutians it went.
What's gross weight? Max gross weight on this thing?
Oh, God, now you're embarrassing me. I should know. Jay?
Where's Jay?
I don't know either.
Oh, no. Okay, sorry, I shouldn't ask that question. Okay.
But I do, it's a fun airplane. Like I said, I really like the Allison engine. I could see why Curtis liked it a lot. I mean, you've been a single engine fighter pilot. When your life depends on an airplane and it keeps bringing you home, you really get a bond with it.
Yep.
And I could see why. I mean, every mission, if this thing had a hiccup, he's not going to make it. If he even makes it in the water, it's going to be an agonizing 2 minutes before he dies. So I could see why he would have a special bond to this airplane.
Yep. All right, I'm going to slow things down here for a minute, and I'm going to open it up for some questions. So let's go back in our seats, and we'll open it up to the crowd here so that people can ask some specifics about this. I will ask, before we go there, we could close with this, but I know Butch wanted to say something later, but I'm just going to ask right now, and I do this on all my programs. I just want to say thanks to those who do serve, and we got guys over there serving as we speak, probably putting, as I used to say, warheads on foreheads over there in the war. And so I'm going to ask our veterans to please stand up so we can give them a round of applause and say thank you for your service. So you vets out there, please stand up. Thank you. Okay, and with that, we've got some microphones out there. I'm going to open it up to some questions. So go ahead. We've got a gentleman in the front here.
Okay. I have a two-part question. First is, what's the inventory supply for internal engine parts like pistons, bearing?
Okay, start that one more time.
Yeah, the supply for internal engine parts like pistons, bearings, rings.
Okay. Pistons, bearing, rings. All you got to do is pay for them, right?
Well, I think the Allison engine is pretty, from what I understand, I haven't talked to the engine builders at all, but I've read some articles, and apparently the engines are quite plentiful. They made an awful lot of them, and they're still around to the point that in the Midwest, they use them in tractor pulls. So I've heard story. Of course, the Merlins, I think, probably grabbed up a little bit sooner. But I think the availability of engines is still pretty good. That's what the question. Do you have anything to add?
Okay, two parts. Second question?
Second one is, does this engine still have the single-stage supercharger?
It's a single-stage, single-speed supercharger.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for your talk. Quick question regarding the Hard to argue with that. Quick question regarding the origin. How did it get from the Aleutian Islands to New Jersey? Have you any idea?
Aleutian Islands to New Jersey. Okay.
To New Jersey. Well, it's, like I said, it had a life there that it was rescued from Amchitkat Island, the second accident. And actually, they had a picture up there, kind of photoshopped. The only thing it did to this airplane was really put a hole in the right leading edge of the wing. And if you look at the end, there's a little patch on it. So it sat on there, and it was rescued, went to Seattle, Troutdale, Oregon, and from there it went to Connecticut, where it wasn't really worked on that much, and ended up going to New Zealand. It was put back in flying condition. They painted it in New Zealand colors because they used them quite often in World War II. It had a accident there, and in the logbook we went through, it had an interesting little write-up. It said, fixed right wing where engine hit it. Sound of freedom. So they rebuilt it again. They rebuilt the airplane again, and it ended up in Louisville, Kentucky with Dick Thurman, and had a really nice Aleutian paint jobs with the Bengal Tiger. And then it ended up down in Miami area for a while, and I think that's maybe where they changed the paint job to the Tony Tiger thing that we didn't like. Then it ended up in New Jersey. And from there, that's when Butch found it.
But this is the airplane that was in the Aleutians way back when. That is the airplane. All right, other questions? Okay, up in the back.
Yes, thank you. With the landing gear swinging down and forward, what's the procedure to take care of a hung main gear?
You can answer.
All right, Jay.
There's two ways to operate the gear. There's an electric hydraulic pump, and the trigger is on the control stick. So the gear selector and the flap selector are right next to each other. So if I want to slap the gear down, put the gear selector down, operate the trigger. Once I get the visual inspection on the gear that it's down, we have a hydraulic handle pump that we can check and make sure it's down. If that hydraulic pump fails, we can do the manual hand pump. Now with the gear, the way it rotates and goes up into the wings, your arm's gonna get tired. It takes about 80 to 100 pumps in order to lower the gear. There's a third option, which essentially you release all hydraulic pressure. There's a reserve hydraulic tank that we can extend the gear. The downside of that is you're only going to get the mains down. You won't get the tail down.
Okay, answers that. Very technical question. Okay, other questions?
Where?
Just came to mind. My dad flew B-24s, and he used to tell me stories as a child about how the American fighters would stack up against the Zeros. And curious, one of the stories he would tell is that the American fighter pilots didn't have the maneuverability of a Zero. So they would lure the Zeros into a high G maneuver where they would dive and get the Zeros to pull out, structurally damaging the Zeros. Is there any, I don't think he was telling me a story, but how did this stack up against the Zeros in a dogfight? Is that a maneuver that they would consider?
How about G loading? Any idea what a typical G? You're not going to load it up now. Obviously, it's a very old airplane. But
no,
back then, is it a 5G, a 6G airplane, something
easily,
like that?
Yeah, and it's very strong. It's got 5 spars in the wing. This is really one of the first all-metal American fighters, and it originated from the P-36, which had the B-17 radial engine on the front. And when they decided to put the Allison on the engine, they gained 40 miles an hour. So it really helped the speed of the airplane. But a lot of, I think, the issues they had is just how they operated the airplane. It's just like any weapon or any fight. You want to do what you do well and don't do what the other guy does well. And that's when you look at how well the Flying Tigers did, how well they did against Germans in North Africa. I don't think the airplane really deserves the second-rate fighter tag. I don't think that really is fair. so much of it depends on tactics and the skill of the pilot and whatnot, and the situation that you're put in. I mean, if they're above you and they're behind you and they surprise you, nobody's going to really come out good out of that. So, I don't know. I think it's a much better airplane than history kind of portrays it.
Okay.
Bit of a geek as well. According to Mr. Google, just under 1,800 rounds. And
Thank you.
8,300 to, pardon me, 8,800, about 9,300 pounds.
Okay.
Thank you.
There you go. He's a good friend of mine, too. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Okay. Any other questions out there? Oh, Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, so Craig, we got a question from someone watching at home. After 8 years of restoration, would there be anything you'd do differently?
Wow.
Yeah, well, gosh, I don't know. It's been such a journey. It's been difficult. It's pushed me as far as my knowledge on working on things. It's pushed my relationship with my wife, poor thing. It's like, so much of my free time was consumed by this thing. After it's all said and done, when I got it here Wednesday, it was probably one of the happiest moments of my life. Just to say, man, we did it. We got it here. It's to try to, display the airplane, to try to, to honor the unsung veterans. I mean, that's what it's really all about. It's not about us. It's really not about the airplane. It's like it's all about this Curtis list. So I hope you guys will continue on with it, because we're doing everything we can to make that what it is. But without you guys taking it the next step, it'll go nowhere. And that's what the airplane, I think, is all about to all of us.
Yeah, and Butch, I got to say thanks for your vision, for your to sit there and say, no, I want to, buy this airplane. I want to make it authentic the way it is. I find that very interesting, because you see the beautiful airplanes here, and they are beautiful. But is that the way they were really fought? No,
Yeah.
no, they weren't. They were fought like this. And I compliment all you folks to do it. And it looks like Jay needs something to say here too.
And they talk about it was the three of us. I mean, it was a team effort. The amount of phone calls that were made. A buddy of mine sitting over here, I won't say his name, but he was my go-to research guy, Dan. If I had questions, he sent us pictures, did a lot of research for us. Brandon Dool from Fagen's came down, saved us, got the prop balance. So it was a team effort. It wasn't just us three. There was a lot of people involved, and thank you to all of them who helped us get it here.
Yeah, I find it interesting too that there are a lot of not a lot, but there are companies out there that do this for a living, and here you guys are who sat there and said, no, we got an airplane, we're going to do it, and you've done it extremely well. So I compliment you in that regard.
Thank you.
So any other questions? Oh, we got one in the back here.
Yeah, I was wondering about this plane compared to a Air Cobra, with the same engine but tricycle landing gear with a tail dragger and low aircraft support. Which one would you think be better? Did the Air Cobra come out afterwards or before this, or at the same time?
The Air Cobra was in the Aleutians, I think, a little bit before the P-40. I mean, actually, really about the same time. And I think the only thing that I would pick this airplane over the Air Cobra is just, it's a lot easier to work on. The Air Cobra is just so much stuff compacted into a small airframe that I can't imagine. I love them. I think they're cool, but I wouldn't want to work on one.
It had to be rough, mid-engine like that. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing to see the planes fly up in Aleutians in that kind of weather. It had to be terrible for them.
Well, we have the approach charts for the islands, and many of you guys probably have heard of it. They had what they call an AN range. So if you remember your Morse code, an A is a dot and a dash, and N is a dash and a dot. So when you were on the beam, it was a solid tone. But you didn't really know if you're off the beam you're in this quadrant, but you don't really know how far you're off the beam. And these winds would change so dramatically. And in defense of Curtis, I don't think it was a landing accident. I think he may have got hit by what they call a willow wall, where these 100-mile-an-hour winds would come in just in a drop of a hat, or change directions 180 degrees. I mean, it was just, you have volcanic islands all around, you've got terrible visibility, low ceilings, high winds, and an AN range. And if you're in the wrong range, it's like, well, okay, I'm doing fine, and then you smack into a mountain. I mean, they mentioned in the video that like 7,000 airplanes went up to the Aleutians. The majority of those went to the Soviet Union. And I think altogether, the United States lost like 471 airplanes in theater. And most of those were to operational losses. Whether one guy made the comment, he got a DFC for bombing or depth charging a submarine. And the guy says, well, I feel like I should get the DFC for just doing normal patrols. The bombing was easy.
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, folks, I think we're going to wrap this session up. I say thank you to you all. And I knew you were going to say something, Butch. Go ahead.
One last thing. When we get this airplane moved to our parking spot, we can get our displays out. You come over and visit, and we'll try to answer all your questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll also just kind of give you all a quick heads up. The rest of the shows this week, we got some tremendous programs planned. This afternoon, we've got an F4U Corsair that's going to be out here. Tomorrow, we got a pair of Lightnings. We've got the old Lightning and the new Lightning that's going to be here, F-35 and a P-38. Tomorrow afternoon, you can see that 104-foot wingspan PBY. That's going to be swung over here as close as we can get it. So we're going to talk about the PBY. We got a couple Mustangs. We got a couple helicopters. We got an A-26. So we got some good shows later on. So I encourage you to come back. And also mentioned the Bud Anderson statue. The unveiling is going to be at 11:30 tomorrow afternoon when we pull the parachute off them, and that'll be an outstanding event also. So thank you all, folks, for being here. We appreciate it, and hope to see you again in the future.
Thank you. Inspired by the veterans in my family, I started the Gary Sinise Foundation in June of 2011. It has been my honor to support and uplift our nation's defenders, our active duty service members, first responders, veterans, and the families who sacrifice alongside them. This has all been possible thanks to our incredible supporters. I am grateful to each and every one of you for your generosity. You help us to bring hope and healing to so many. To all of you, and to our nation's heroes who are serving, have served, and to your families, thank you. To learn more, visit GarySineseFoundation.org.
"40 years ago, a community came together with a shared purpose: to train better, fly smarter, and make aviation safer. From humble beginnings to a worldwide network, the North American Trainer Association has shaped generations of pilots and instructors. Flying is a discipline. It's the early mornings, the checklists repeated, the lessons learned again and again until precision becomes instinct. And safety? Safety is an attitude, a mindset carried into every decision, every flight, every generation we train. For 40 years, the North American Trainer Association has stood for excellence, not just in how we fly, but in how we think, prepare, and lead. Because in aviation, discipline builds skill, and attitude saves lives. Here's to 40 years of commitment, and to the future we'll keep shaping, together.
The name Jane is actually the name of his wife. Making it exactly how it was flown by actually Rick Marshall, who was the AA Spider.
Keeping these airplanes flying preserves stories that will no longer be told by the greatest generation.
Through restorations and flying, we were able to continue their legacy and remember their sacrifices. And that's really the most important thing when you're flying these airplanes. When you go somewhere, you have the responsibility to share with people what they did, and that these aren't just airplanes, they help save our freedom.
It's hard to imagine a more podcast-worthy aviator than Robert Hoot Gibson. He's a degreed aeronautical engineer, a naval aviator with 300-plus combat missions, graduate Top Gun, graduate Naval Test Pilot School, NASA astronaut commander with 5 space shuttle missions, chief NASA astronaut, Southwest Airlines captain, world champion unlimited class air race champion. A new season of Hoot's Hangar, the exclusive podcast produced in Hoot's home studio, will shortly be in production. In this series, Hoot and an endless string of compelling guests cover all things aero combat flying, space travel, air racing, aircraft design and performance, high-profile accident investigations, RC modeling, home building, and more. Join Hoot Gibson and his guests in Hoot's Hangar, the most compelling podcast in aerospace. Now, get unlimited access to all episodes for less than a trip to the coffee bar. Just $9.95 a year. Just go to airtoairtv.com to gain access and subscribe.
Truck 1, Warhawk 4-0, second cam has bragged.
Warhawk
240 Fox 1, have you loud and clear. Enemy vehicle, IVO, Blue Mountain runway.
As much as I'm looking forward to having a successful mission, cleaning all this up and getting back, it's kind of sad that this could be the last time that these guns ever fire again.
This side, hot, ready to go. That side is moments away from all 6 ripping down range.
3 is hot. 100 feet MSL, 5, vehicle convoy, 6, target location, Blue Mountain runway, 7. Final attack heading to be 200. Attack heading 200, copy all. Here, arm and hot.
I guess I was fairly apprehensive the whole time that I was flying in combat. And I guess there's good reason to feel that way. I'm there to cause a lot of damage and a lot of harm, and therefore they would like to damage me. And I was 25 years old at that time. Top Gun was really a thrill. I must have done well in actual combat because at the time I was just a lieutenant junior grade, which is a first lieutenant in the Air Force. And so I may have been the very first lieutenant junior grade to go through Top Gun. STS-27 was my third launch, and it was only the second launch after the Challenger accident. Well, I will never forget, we maneuvered the arm, and Mike Mullane was my arm operator, so he moved the arm over there, and we brought up the television image of the right wing, and I looked at what I was seeing, and I said to myself, we are gonna die. Well, there's a lot of piloting that goes into it, a tremendous amount of piloting that goes into it, because you're going to wind up passing other airplanes. You're going to get in a duel with another airplane that's fairly closely matched. So there's a ton of satisfaction from doing that. And hey, let's just talk about the racing itself. It's fun to fly low, but it's dangerous.
In 1937, Japan began a war of conquest to gain control of China's vast natural resources. Japan needed them to supply its planned conquest of the entire Pacific region. By 1941, estimates are some 1 million Japanese ground troops were committed to this effort, and the Imperial Air Force had begun a merciless campaign of indiscriminate bombings of Chinese cities and civilian centers. The loss of innocent life and suffering was incalculable. China's Air Force was all but non-existent. There was no way to defend the cities. But in 1941, Claire Chennault, a retired U.S. Army Air Corps officer consulting with the Chinese Republic, convinced President Roosevelt to let him recruit and supply a volunteer force of U.S. pilots to defend China's skies. The legendary American volunteer group, Flying Tigers, were born. This year marks the 85th anniversary of the AVG Flying Tigers. Perhaps you've been concerned with the failure of our schools to teach the history of World War II, the event that literally shaped the world we now live in. Air-to-air-tv.com is a growing archive of World War II history. With this special offer, you can give the gift of history to a student or anyone who will value it for less than a trip to the coffee shop. Just go to air-to-air-tv.com to gain access and to give the gift of knowledge.
At JetGlo, we believe an aircraft is more than aluminum, paint, and rivets. It carries stories. Stories of sacrifice, stories of service, stories of the men and women who stepped forward when our country needed them the most. As a veteran myself, I understand that these aircraft are not just museum pieces. They are flying reminders of the courage, skill, and sacrifice of generations before us. That is why Warbirds in Review matters. Every time one of these machines starts, taxis, and takes to the sky, history becomes real again, not just for pilots, not just for veterans, but for families, young people, and the future generations who need to see it, hear it, and feel it. At JetGlo, we are proud to support the Warbird community, aircraft owners, operators, and the people who work so hard to keep these aircraft flying. We specialize in aviation-only detailing, aircraft appearance and preservation care, bright work polishing, window restoration, ceramic coatings, and condition maintenance, because preserving an aircraft's appearance is part of preserving its legacy. JetGlo is based right here in Oshkosh, and we are proud to support Warbirds in Review. To every veteran, restorer, crew chief, pilot, and volunteer who keeps history alive, thank you. JetGlo is proud to stand with you, because every flight deserves a JetGlo.